Okay, so 45 through 48. Then Jesus entered the temple courts and began to drive out those who were selling things there, saying to them, "It is written, my house will be a house of prayer, but you have turned it into a den of robbers." Jesus was teaching daily in the temple courts. The chief priests and the experts in the law and the prominent leaders among the people were seeking to assassinate him. But they could not find a way to do it, for all the people hung on his words. Hung on his words. All right. Well, you know what sticks out for me is how the people hung on his words. And I feel like that's what we're trying to do. You know, every day, Jesus teaching daily in the temple courts, for all the people hung on his words. It was a lot. I wonder if the gaggle that was with him, they're like, "Oh yeah, we're going to the temple now, baby. We're gonna clean it out. Here we go. It's the beginning of the kingdom." You know what I mean? We're gonna kick out all those bastard Pharisees, and if they were like, "Let's get him, Jesus." Mm. Oh, Jesus. No. What are you doing? Don't make a scene. You're probably right. I'm sure there were some that were with him that were like, "Oh my God, this is a problem. This is going to create a problem." Reminds me of an old episode of sitcom show I used to watch when I was a kid, The Facts of Life. Have you ever seen The Facts of Life? There you go. Ready?
There's a place you gotta go for learning all you want to know about the facts of life. The facts of life. When your books are what you're there about, but books are what you care about. The time is right to learn the facts of life. When the boys you used to hate you named, just your best to investigate the facts of life.
Molly Ringwald.
If you hear them from your father, better clear up with your mother. Gotta get them right. The facts of life. When the world cannot see, you live in unto your dreams. It's time to start finding out the facts of life for all.
Season 1. That was really early. Yeah, that show. The reason it reminded me of that, it was like when you were like, oh, Jesus. There was this, and then I was like, oh, Jesus, you're so silly. Like, there's like in the opening of that, the opening of the show when they singing the song, I like pictured one of the girls being like silly, and somebody looking at her being like, oh, and like laughing at her, like, and I was like, oh, that's what happened with Jesus. They were like, oh, Jesus, you're so silly, when he was kicking over everything. I don't know why my mind there, Daniel, but it did. Probably wasn't really like that. Well, yeah, and if we continue to follow him, he's digging ours as well. It's like, this doesn't feel good. Even at that moment, you're like, oh, should I be following this guy? Because we're all going to get in a lot of trouble. I mean, these Pharisees, they freaking stone people. They have people stoned to death. It reminds me of like the Taliban. You know what I mean? Like, don't mess with them. Yeah. They didn't have authority to exact capital punishment on their own. So you think when they were going to stone the woman that they had some sort of approval to do it? They must have. The stoning of the woman? It's a good question. Yeah, I guess if it was more like in an outer village somewhere, it's probably less likely that they would have had approval. Or maybe there was kind of a I could see like a centurion, like a Roman kind of. There's going to be a Roman like outpost at each little city, probably a guy who's in charge and maybe has the authority to grant approval for capital punishment. And maybe they just went to him quickly and they're like, hey, this woman, she was caught committing adultery. Our laws say that she needs to be stoned. He's like, yeah, whatever, go ahead. You know what I mean? And at the end of the day, it kind of comes down to probably that person and what sort of mood they're in. Like, so it's potentially it probably wasn't applied in a consistent way across towns and Maybe. I don't know. Well, Lord, what do you want to share with us today? What do we need to see here? Oh, I heard something. Sometimes badassery is required. It's called for. It's called for sometimes. Sometimes inappropriate behavior is called for. Shake up power structures that are not of God. And Jesus, pardon my English, had the balls to do it. Well, I guess in this case, the balls he had were to go and be killed. I kind of remember, like, when we read about this in Mark, this moment. There was a moment at which I was like, oh wow, okay, the die has been cast. You know what I mean? And I think it was around this time, or when Jesus was arguing with Jesus was arguing with the Pharisees, and he had said something to them that was just so extremely offensive. And it said at that point they were trying to come up with a plan to kill him. I was like, oh, that was it. The die is now cast. And it kind of feels like this is a similar thing, because they say he was teaching daily in the temple. The chief priests and experts in the law and the prominent leaders among the people were seeking to assassinate him, but they couldn't find a way to do it, for all the people hung on his words. And I don't recall in the book of Luke if there's anything prior that states that they were trying to assassinate him, or if this is the first instance. You know what I mean? I guess for Jesus, the die had always been cast. So it's not like, I mean, if he has God's perspective and sees things eternally, or the past, present, and future all happen in parallel, then the die was always cast, and he's always dying and raising to life. That sounds heretical, but I don't mean it to be. What do you think? Sorry, I feel like I'm dominating the conversation this morning. I think I'm allowing myself to talk more because I know you're kind of new and stuff. What? No, we read about it, didn't we? Yeah, it is. It's in Mark 11. It's in 11. Yeah, right after the triumphal entry and the cursing of the fig tree. Yeah, and then that's exactly, yeah, this is the thing. Verse 17, then he began to teach them and said, it is not written, my house will be called a house of prayer for all nations, but you have turned into a den of robbers. And then the chief priests and the experts in the law heard it, and they considered how they could assassinate him, for they feared him, because the whole crowd was amazed by his teaching. And then he went out of the fig tree, and that's when Peter was like, Lord, look at this fig tree. And that's when we said believing is seeing. Yeah, so the die is cast. How does Gandalf say it in The Lord of the Rings? You know what I'm referring to? I think he says he's talking about the chessboard. It's another metaphor. Gandalf said the die is cast. Chessboard? Question mark. Is often. Oh, it's attributed to Julius Caesar. Isn't that interesting? However, does say a similar line. ChatGPT is so crazy. I typed in Gandalf said the die is cast. ... Chessboard, and then it says the phrase "the die is cast" is often attributed to Julius Caesar, not Gandalf. However, Gandalf, a character from J.R. Tolkien's Lord of the Rings series, does say a similar line during a pivotal moment in the story. In the Fellowship of the Ring, during the Council of Elrond, Gandalf says, "The board is set. The pieces are moving." This statement is not directly related to chessboard, but signifies the events that have been set in motion and the outcome is now inevitable. That's exactly what I was trying to remember, and it knew. Son of a gun. Oh my Lord. So I've been the prompting I've been working on, putting the reminder in, it seems to be doing better. I updated the prompt again to be more explicit about when I want it to roll, or when I want it to require me to roll. So it's asking me to roll more. Also, I didn't notice. Did you update the system prompt with how we expect the user syntax, or was that me? I can't remember. Okay, because I wasn't playing by those rules. I'd forgotten about that. But when I started playing by those rules yesterday, I noticed that, and I was like, oh, I'm going to start doing it that way. It seemed to respond in a more controlled way. Okay. Sorry, I jumped. I jumped off this. You're teaching and got a little distracted. Are you there? You seem to be. So last night because I was kind of running out of ideas for adventure premises. I was like, you know what? We should just give the DM the ability to create a premise based on the character sheet that we have. So last night, one of the functions I added, and I put in a pull request for it, was for it to generate its own adventure based on that's like tailor made to the character sheet. So it's really cool. It does a really good job of it. I ran it a few times. So basically, when it asks you to put in the premise, now there's a little line after that says, "Oh, and if you want me to generate it, just hit enter without entering anything." And then it goes out and generates a premise, and then continues on. It's like, oh, this is cool. I also created another. I had ChatGPT create another. I was just thinking that, the other thing we could do would be really easy is to have it generate characters too. So if you don't enter a character, I could do the same function. It'll take one of the other characters as a template, And then it'll generate a character for you, and then use that. That might be fun too. And save off the character sheet to the data folder. So, and then I think, like, the other things I was thinking about was incorporating multiple characters and turns across, the characters. But with that, the way we have it set up right now, it's a Python script. And then two, so really only one person can interact with that at a time unless they're connecting to some server or service on a server somewhere, which I think you've probably done because you had to do that in C++, at least with your app. You created a client server based app, right? For your okay. So there's probably I'm sure there's similar open source out there that would allow us to do that. Yeah. Uh-huh. I see what you're saying. It's just the DM is always sitting there waiting and hosting adventures for people. The thing it's struggling with is well, okay. First of all, I got the rolling working. So essentially it will say things like, hey, do a X check, right? It's like, okay, roll for initiative, right? And you're like, okay. And so when it comes to the player prompt and you're able to type in what it looks for every time, actually, what the script looks for is format of a number, the letter D, and then another number. So 1D20 or 4D10 or whatever, right? So when you type that in, it basically identifies that there's a function called is roll, which is a Boolean result. I just realized something. Huh. In Python, no, it does. In Python, I don't usually in Java and other languages, .NET and stuff. C++ as well. You have to typecast the functions, like what does it return? But I just realized the isRoll function doesn't return. It's not typecast, but it returns true false, but it works. So I guess in Python you don't have to necessarily typecast a function. Anyway, so yeah, I created a function called isRoll. It returns true or false, and it basically takes the user message and determines if it's a roll or not. So that's how it works. And then so what it does is it takes that, decomposes the two numbers, one, the first number and the last number, and then rolls the appropriate, uses this random number generator to based on those constraints. And if you have, it does support multiple, like a 2D whatever, 2D10, and it actually could support. You could type in like 50, like 11D107, and it would actually roll 107 sided die 11 times, and then add it all up for you and like list them all out. And so what it does is it takes all that, it builds a string, and it says I rolled a 11 107 sided die, and the results were a 5, 93, a 76, blah blah blah, and then for a total of blah, right? So it builds that string, and then it writes that string to the console and adds it to the dialogue, and then calls the chat function of OpenAI API. And so the DM sees that and then responds appropriately. And it actually does a pretty good job. Like, it knows with the character sheet information, it knows the modifiers and stuff, and it adds like, it sees my role, it sees the outcome, and then it says, okay, you rolled a 15. Your dexterity modifier is a +5 because you have a 20 in dexterity, so your total is 20. And it knows how to calculate that, which is pretty cool, but it doesn't always tell you that. Sometimes it will go through the calculations and show them to you, the dice calculations, and then other times it'll just say, this is what happened, without telling you what the dice rolls were. The other thing I don't like about it is, and maybe this is, okay, when you play, does your DM show you his dice rolls, or is it behind a screen? Okay, so I guess it's appropriate. He'll let you see. Oh my God. Yeah. And he would also tell you the required number. Well, you would know because of your armor class and your modifiers as well, right? So, okay. Yeah, sometimes I would like to see his rolls. And the other thing too, his rolls are being generated from LLM, so they're not they're not random, which kind of bothers me. I would like, what I would like to be able to do? I think this is the next thing I'm going to do, is figure out how to have him be able to execute the roll function. I wonder if there's a way to do that. Because right now, oh man, if we could do that, okay, if we could do that, if we could get the API to execute code, a function in the Python script, that would open up a lot of great capabilities. Because then what it would do, it would kind of, right now it's really open. The DM kind of just decides, whatever he wants to do in the flow of the story, right? But if we could put some guardrails around the responses and what OpenAI can do by forcing it to execute functions in the script, then it acts more like a brain, but with more rules, which I think would address a lot of the clunkiness in it. Does that make sense? So maybe the dice rolling is a good first time, or a good first thing to do, like to have it roll dice. Like, don't come up with some generative number for a dice roll. Like, if you want to roll dice, DM, roll a dice and use this function in the script to do it. Yeah, exactly. I think that's I'm going to work on that. So it's not a problem to like queue up pull requests, right? I haven't done this before with Git, so I don't know how it works, but you approve one at a time, right? And so it's not a big deal. Okay. I think I'll need to well, I could work in the current, well, it actually, we kind of did that before because when I made my original change yesterday, and then I realized I didn't add everything to it that I needed to. So I had created a pull request for it, but it was incomplete. And then I went back to my original branch and modified it again and added a few more things actually, and then added everything request. And then you ended up taking that second pull request and approving it, right? So I guess it's probably fine to do it. And you could probably, if I made another change and then had created another pull request from the same branch, you could probably ignore the first pull request. We could close it out and go to the second. But I don't know if the best thing is for me now. I know that like according to ChatGPT anyway, I was asking it how to do this. It said for every sort of improvement or whatever or function that you want to make, create a branch for it, and then do it, and then push, and then push it, and then pull it, and then once it's pulled into main, then you just destroy that branch, right, and then create another branch. And so I'm wondering if I should just create another branch, maybe off of. I'll have to ask ChatGPT how to do it. If I want to do another enhancement that's, and my original pull request hasn't been done yet, do I create another branch for my new one? Or I think I could create another branch off of main because my local version of main has new, so I could, I'll just create a second one. I'll make the second branch. I'll make the changes, go ahead and promote it and do another pull request. And then they would work the same way. You could do one pull request at a time, or you could just ignore the first one and go to the second one, which would probably be easier because then. Yeah, I could branch off my branch, but that's a little more of a pain because then I have to promote it. So when I create when I modify my new branch and I'm happy with it, to get it to main, don't I have to like merge the code into version 1 branch, and then from there merge the code into main local, and then from there do the push to like it seems like it's, I don't know. Yeah, okay. You're right. Yeah. Okay. uh all right, well, I think um you're probably almost to church, aren't you? Well, any thoughts about what Jesus is talking about here? Getting back to this. We got a little distracted. Mm, okay. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of our political system in the US. How originally, democracy and how it was intended to be in service to the people. And then it was basically absconded with by scoundrels who turned it into a business and a power platform for themselves. And that's a bit hyperbolic, maybe, but to a degree, I think that's true. Huh? Wow, that's interesting. And then the shaman, what's the guy? The QAnon shaman that went into the house. He was like Jesus cleansing the temple. I don't I don't know about all that stuff. Um, that's interesting. Yeah, it makes sense. I think for me, like where my head was going with this is what is it today in my life that where I need to cleanse the temple and risk, right? Casting the die in my own life. And that the word die being having two meanings, right? Dying to self, like where do I need to die to self today? Where it feels dangerous, it feels risky, it feels painful. I did not have any alcohol last night. And I was tempted to have some wine with dinner, and I was like, I'm just not going to drink anything tonight. That was good. I was also thinking about having an edible, and I didn't do that either. It's been a while since I've had an edible, in months, but I think that's what I'm thinking about. It's like there's something today that is like a cleansing where I need to make a decision and follow through with it and allow. Yeah. Okay. I think I know what it is. I know what it is. All right, sir. It appears that you have arrived. I knew that about you from the day I met you. Yeah. No, when you've arrived, you know what I mean. I mean, you've arrived. It means that like you've reached the pinnacle. Like you you have become the Daniel. Hey, do you think there's anybody else that would be interested in playing with this fun game that we've started? If you think that there's someone else that would be good to join, that wouldn't be like, that would be cool about it and have fun enhancing it, I'd be okay with inviting other people into it. I mean, obviously it's open source. Anyone could go up there at this point, right? So, yeah. 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 Right. What about Josh Gadikin? He doesn't he do develop? He does, right? I can't remember. It seems like I asked him if he ever played D&D, and it seemed like he said no. Okay. All right. He might be okay. Is he serving today? Here, I'll check it. Yeah, I can. Uh, uh, Crossroads weekends. Are you late right now? Are you okay? Okay. Yeah, yeah. If you need to get off that, I don't want to stop you. So teams. Uh, that's weird. I don't see show all teams. Okay, here we are. Production. Aaron Gadikin is lighting tech. Josh is on camera 5 today. Yeah, yeah, he's on. Yeah, it might be fun to get a few people from church in. And I don't know if Margot, I don't know if she does any development or she's ever played D&D before. Could ask her too. Ah, is she really? I would be down to do something like that the next time we meet, if you want to. Um, Maybe with our faith and tech group. That would be kind of fun to have game night. All right, buddy. Thank you for serving. Man, it's gorgeous. Wow. It actually looks pretty good. It looks correctly blue, skyish. All right, man. I love you, and it was good chatting this morning and spending time with the Lord together. And thanks for serving, and we'll see you a little later this morning. I'll try to drag my sorry ass into church, and also try to shave my neck beard because it's getting scruffy like you. You know what I was thinking about doing? Sorry, one last comment. I had an idea. I was like, maybe I should just shave the face part and leave the neck beard. Neck beard only. I just think that would be interesting. All right, man. We'll talk to you later. See ya. You too. Bye.
That's it. We're going to die. Yeah.